Welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. I mentioned that you're smart. Let's just come here for a second. Can we just come here? No, just come here a second. I'm sorry about Wednesday. I am. I intended to do a show on Wednesday, and it didn't happen. I was in New York for work from Monday through Thursday, and I did a show Sunday night, dropped it on Monday. The people who paid attention to the beginning of the show on Monday heard me say that it was pre-recorded. I saw a lot of comments, many comments, on Monday's show saying, well, I guess Russ isn't going to the comments today. It's because it wasn't live. And I intended on doing one Wednesday, and it didn't happen, and I am sorry. Okay, it's a mea culpa. I'm sorry. I didn't do a show Wednesday, but we're back. So, okay. That's it. That's all. All right, we're getting away from that. But welcome in. Happy Friday. A lot of stuff to get into today. I don't know if you know this or not, but the Phillies are back. And when I say the Phillies are back, I don't mean the Phillies are back to playing baseball. I mean the Phightin Phils are back, baby. Oh, yeah, we're riding the hype train today. Kind of. For the most part. There were a bunch of firsts yesterday. Cristopher Sanchez had a first. Duran had a first. I got to tell you, for as down on the offseason as I was, and admittedly, I was very down on the offseason, and as skeptical as I remain about this lineup, most notably about the fact that I don't think it's particularly better this year, I'm all back in on opening myself up to being hurt by the Phillies again, and by the Sixers, and we're going to talk about them later on in the show as well. But I'm back to being open to being hurt by the Phillies again, being disappointed by the Phillies again, because, as I've said many times, the summer functions a whole lot better when the Phillies are good versus when the Phillies are bad. So yesterday was a very good start to things. Most notably, Cristopher Sanchez. I think if you, for whatever reason, if somehow Cristopher Sanchez didn't earn your trust a year ago, if he didn't earn your trust after Zach Wheeler went down, if he didn't earn your trust kicking ass and taking names in the postseason, it certainly should happen now. Because the man was a bona fide stud again on Thursday. So we'll talk about him. Again, Duran did something. It didn't look like they were going to need to use Duran, and then, of course, they did. And so he had an all-time first for a Philly, which was pretty wild. So we'll talk about that in a second. We can also have a conversation. I mean, is this a safe space? Is this a safe space to have a conversation? Young Kyle Schwarber hits a home run the other way to get things started in a meaningful way. Good job there. Alec Bohm, you may have heard he's in the news a little bit. He hits a 3-run blast the other way as well. How about that? And then he gets asked about a lawsuit that got filed against his parents by Alec Bohm. And it happened during the game. Well, the news broke at least during the game from the Philadelphia Inquirer. It wouldn't be a Philly opening day, I guess. It wouldn't be a Philly sports team if we didn't have some kind of extracurriculars happening away from the field. So you got all that and a lot more. And we have to have a conversation about the Philadelphia Flyers, who won last night. And we have to talk about Paul George and Joel Embiid returning to the lineup for the Sixers and kicking ass and taking names. It is a loaded program today. But welcome in. I'm going to go out to the comments here real quick. I also have to shoot a note over to Anthony Sanchilippo, who, I mean, I don't know if you saw this last night over on the Press Row show. You probably did. But Ant got in his feelings a little bit because I muted his mic in a joking fashion. And then he ended the stream. Who does that? Well, anyway, Ant went and tried to set up the stream for Phightin Words, which apparently is happening at 10:30, which, is kind of counterintuitive here, as we have two shows then going at the same time. But he didn't set it up correctly. Now I have to send him a note so it doesn't totally fall on its face. So, that's kind of where we're at right now. I'll get there. But let's go out to the comments. We'll kind of do this whole thing. Chris Freed is here. It is a Friday during Lent. We're almost done. I mean, we're Palm Sunday this Sunday. Yeah, it's Palm Sunday. And then next Sunday is Easter. And boy, that feels like it happened pretty fast. And the Flyers play on Easter Sunday. I don't think I'm going on Easter Sunday. I think it's a family holiday. I also have to make a pilgrimage up to Kovalenix in Shenandoah, or as we called it up in Skook, Shendo. I gotta make a pilgrimage up there to go get some kielbasa, get some kielbasa loaf. They have kielbasa bombs. Okay, we're gonna be careful when we say that word here, especially on YouTube. but kielbasa bombs, they're like little bits of kielbasa, and then they wrap them in bacon, and they put some barbecue sauce on them. Those are dangerous little dudes. Kielbasa loaf, though, slaps. And what's the Krakowska? Krakowska is like another thing. It's like another kind of like pork-based meat. I feel bad for my brother-in-law. He can't have pork. He can't have ham. He's like allergic. And if he's around it while it's cooking, like his esophagus or whatever closes up. So like we try not to kill him. But Easter is like the holiday to kind of kill him in a sense because it's all pork-based. It's all pig-based products, on the table. I'll make halupkis, though. Halupkis have beef. So he can have halupkis. Maybe I'll do like a steak or something on the side for him. He deserves to eat. He just can't eat all the wonderful pig things. But yeah, mushroom stromboli Friday. What else can you do today? I mean, you could do pizza, right? You could do plain pizza today. You could do a little broccoli pizza. You could do want some fish sticks. You like fish sticks in your mouth? Maybe you do. Do you like fish sticks? Maybe you do. A little salmon. I think I might have some salmon and broccoli for lunch. You never know. Chris Freed says, Alec Bohm joins Ryan Howard in suing his parents over financial issues, a Phillies tradition like no other. I forgot about the Ryan Howard thing. I think Ant told me last night that also involved like Ryan Howard's brother as well. It wasn't just the parents, but like that's nuts. Ford is here. Says Ford is present, accounted for. Everyone enjoying summer weather followed by winter weather and back-to-back days for weeks now. Awesome stuff. I hate it so much. I do. I had a guy here measuring for a deck. I'll tell you right now, if you're out there and you're a contractor, or you're somebody out there who knows a contractor, and you want to work out a deal here, a little bit of advertising, but also, I'll pay you as well. But like, got a deck builder out there? You can get in touch with me. I want a deck this year. I've decided that our current setup that has been here since I think the original owners of this house, it ain't working. I think my wife is finally on board with getting a deck out back. So hit me up. But I was talking to that guy about it. And I was like, up in New York, it was really cold. And then yesterday it was really hot. It was beautiful. And now we're back to like cold and dreary this morning, a little bit of rain. I don't get it. Why do we live here? I think that's a question that everyone needs to ask if you live in Pennsylvania. Why do we live here? It's better than Maryland. That's part of it, right? It's better than godforsaken Maryland. No offense to Maryland, but kind of offense to Maryland. They love their flag. They love that Maryland flag more than just about anything else. Maybe because it's the best part of Maryland. Who knows? Who's to say? Why do we live here, though? Why do we deal with the transitional seasons? Why do we deal with the volatility in the weather where you go from 70 degrees and sunny to like bitter cold and dreary and nasty? These are questions. B Condor 1 says the Phillies having an off day today is a crime. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I think I say this every single year. I hate the idea that you get everybody hyped up for opening day and you're like, all right, back at it for game 2 today. Everybody got hyped up. And it's like, nah. You thought you got baseball 2 days in a row? Go to hell. Like what? No game today, but a 4:05 game against the Rangers on Saturday and then a 1:35 game against the Rangers on Sunday. And if you're down in the sports complex, I got even better news for you because on Sunday night, the Flyers are playing. Why are the Flyers playing on a Sunday night? I have no idea. No idea whatsoever, but they are. They're playing on Sunday night. So that's fun and kind of cute. And by cute, I mean not cute at all. It's actually kind of insane. Okay. Amadeus here says the abrupt ending on Press Row last night was like The Sopranos. It was. And hit the outro. There's a button that you get hit in the stream. There's an outro, and then there's like an end stream and play the outro. And he hit the wrong one. So after the outro hit, it kept going. Like there was actually like a static screen that showed for about 10 seconds. I was like, yo, buddy, we might want to hit the right button this time. But yeah, it was something. Let's see. Chris says, at least we know Russ is live today. The only time the show starts on time is when it is taped. That might be true. It might be true. Nick Abe's here as well. Hello, Nick. Let's see. Nick Abe says, Russ, we should do this show every day on our way for 1 million subscribers. There is no. Can't do it every day. Maybe. Nah, probably not. It's Hunzy's here, says Russell. Hello, Hunzy. I hope you're doing well. Let's see. Ford says Russ was in New York City. He came back Muslim. I did not. If there was an attempt to convert me, it did not work. I don't think there was an attempt to convert me. Let's see. Ford says Phillies look good, then almost blew it. Standard Philly stuff. Correct. We'll get there in a second. Chris asks, what's the church next to the Beaver? So we got Bucky here. You can kind of see it here. The CN Tower from Canada is here. This is La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. I've taken to doing two things, right? When I go on work trips, I get a Starbucks mug from the town or the region, and then I've been adding some of the geographical things. Now the Sagrada Familia one's really big, which is fine, but the CN Tower one here is really tiny by comparison. So I don't know. We got to figure that one out. I also am thinking about doing a different setup here with the desk and where everything's at. I don't know if I want to go the full Dan Patrick where he's got multi-tiered things and you can barely see his head over top of everything in front, but I'm considering it. Nick Abe says Paul Skeens won't win the Cy Young. He got pulled after 2/3 of an inning yesterday. He's got a 67.5 ERA. I think he'll be fine. I do. I think he'll be fine. Amadeo asks about Cristopher Sanchez. How did Sanchez become this elite? I have no idea, but he's incredible. We got to get to him in a second. All right, let's see. Wylan Ernst is here. Says, you're a wizard, Harry? Maybe. Did we see the Harry Potter trailer, by the way? I don't know how to feel. Maybe it's fine. I don't know, guys. I really don't know. OGJH asks, is there trouble in the paradise of the Russ Joy media empire? No. Sanfilippo just doesn't make any sense to me, but that's pretty normal. Let's see. Landros is here, says, Ant rewriting the Gauthier situation Trump style, fake news, arguing Briere had nothing to do with the falling out. I'm on the record of what I think happened. I'm pretty sure that I'm right. Fletcher made a promise. Fletcher got deposed. Hayes told Gauthier, you don't want to play for Torts. I'm sure Torts probably said something really fucking dumb to Gauthier, and that was it. And then Briere, I wouldn't be surprised if Briere had said to Gauthier when he took over, hey, maybe a year with the Phantoms. That wouldn't shock me. So you get hey, maybe a year with the Phantoms. Torts says something dumb. Hayes says probably don't want to play for Torts, and then that's it. Does that mean Briere blew it? I wouldn't say he blew it. Does that mean that Torts kind of screwed things up? I would say Torts probably helped in some way in screwing things up. I don't have to rewrite it at all. Let's see. Carl Bradley says, Flyers flash poll. Make playoffs for roster experience. Yeah, I mean, we could ask that question. I think that at this point, and we'll take a look at it when we get to the Flyers in a little bit. We'll look at the playoff scenarios and what has to happen down the stretch here. I think very clearly they cannot end up in a spot where they're going to pick high enough in the draft for it to matter. So if you're going to be on a collision course with the 14th or 15th pick, you may as well go for the playoffs as hard as you can. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Nick Abe is going out for pizza tonight. Good job, Nick Abe. Good job. I mentioned fish sticks before. Connor Bucks. Sorry, do I what in my mouth? Ford offers a different kind of deck. I'll deck you. Well, that seems like a threat of violence. Well, let's call the police on young Ford. Be a great idea. Nick Abe also says Russ McDavid and Kucherov are tied with 121 points right now. It would be just nice. Wouldn't it be nice to have a guy on the Flyers who could get you even close to 90? Wouldn't 90 feel great at this point? 95. Can you imagine if the Flyers had a guy who could even make you start to think just a little bit, just a tiny bit about 100-point season? Wouldn't that be awesome? That ain't happening. Fawcett is here from Texas. Fawcett, I'm assuming, is happy in Texas. I don't know anybody who lives in Texas who doesn't like being in Texas. Maybe Texas is the place to move. Maybe. Ford on the weather here says there may be 2 months out of the 12 that are nice. Maybe. Let's see. Wyland's going to the Phillies game on Monday. Enjoy that. Have fun out there. We got people crapping on Canada now. Casual war zone guy as well. Poo-pooing on Canada. That's okay. Fawcett says, I bought you some beaver nuggets from Buc-ee's with the intent to send them, but they didn't survive. Rest in peace to the nuggets. Well, that makes me sad. Thanks for that, Fawcett. I was having a good Friday, and now I heard about that. That's really sad. Sad. Wyland says, hate that they're remaking Harry Potter. I think it's actually going to be okay. I'm not fully convinced. There is one very clear casting decision with the Harry Potter series that is going to catch a lot of flack. I mean, like, if you watch the trailer, I think you know what I'm talking about. I don't think we have to articulate it here. All right? Like, we could, but we have to promise me if we talk about the Harry Potter casting that we're all looking at saying, ooh, I don't know about that one. We're not canceling Russ over this, okay? Okay. I'll offer my thoughts here. They're very clearly, in the Harry Potter trailer, there is one casting that you can look at, and I think we all have to admit, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, when you think about the story itself and when you think about the history, there's one casting that doesn't make sense. John Lithgow as Dumbledore. Do you remember what the Trinity Killer did to Rita? And now I'm supposed to believe that John Lithgow has a heart? I'm supposed to believe that he's a good guy? The Trinity Killer was a terrible guy. Justice for Rita, man. Justice for Rita. Okay. That's obviously the casting that everyone is upset with. A little Dexter throwback for all of you out there. Okay. All right. I want to get into the stuff. Canceled. All right. So let's get into it. Let's get into the Phillies game. Let's get into everything that went well with the Phillies. Because there were a lot of things that I think ultimately are good. I forgot to send this to San Filippo. All right, there we go. I want to dive into what we saw on opening day. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not feeling 22. I don't know what it is. Was it like 7 or 8 years ago the Phillies opened up against the Braves? And there was, I seem to remember there being a home run to dead center field, and it felt like the Phillies, like it was a bad omen for the season. I don't know what it was about yesterday, but man, oh man, it felt so good to watch Cristopher Sanchez just decimate the opposition. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Texas this year. I don't know if Texas is going to be one of the worst teams in baseball, if they're going to make the playoffs, if they're going to be a team that comes on really strong later in the season. I honestly don't care. When we're this early in the season, I just want to see a team that should, in theory, be close to winning the NL East, should be a legitimate contender in the National League. I want to see that team go out and perform. I don't really care who the opposition is. Like, go out and rack up some early wins. And there is no better feeling than starting out the season at home and getting a big win. And we have to acknowledge, and I don't think anybody's going to be opposed to acknowledging it, but like, Cristopher Sanchez is incredible. I mean, we've been very grateful, or we've been very lucky, right? And I think we all need to acknowledge this. If you're a Phillies fan, you need to acknowledge this. We've been treated to a lot of incredible pitching over the last 2 decades, right? I mean, go back to like the World Series win in '08, right? Cole Hamels, very good pitcher, right? Had moments where he looked like an elite pitcher. Had some Cy Young hype about him. You add Cliff Lee. Cliff Lee goes out, bona fide stud. We got to watch Cliff Lee. We had a lot of fun. Roy Halladay gets added. I'd argue one of the best pitchers of any of our lifetimes, right? We loved Halladay. Incredibly dominant, incredibly durable, could get you a complete game shutout. Absolute stud. We were fortunate enough to see guys like that. And then you fast forward a bit and Zach Wheeler comes to town. Bona fide ace. Legitimate stud. And you go, wow. Can you ever find anybody who matches it? Like, to me, Wheeler, in a way, has felt about as dominant or close to as dominant as some of those peak years of Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay. And you go, wow, we're very fortunate to get to have a guy on the staff like that, because there are a lot of teams in both leagues, right, that wish they would probably give up one of Zach Wheeler's ribs, right, to go out and get a guy like Zach Wheeler. And then you look over the last couple of years, and you're like, Ranger Suarez, when he was healthy, looked like a guy who could be a stone cold killer, and he performed really well in the playoffs. But ho-hum, like, you get Cristopher Sanchez, who, like, was not exactly like a highly heralded guy, right? And that was last year. It felt like there was this massive shift in the understanding of what Sanchez could be. And I think there were a lot of eyes on him last year, and there were some question marks. Can he replicate his performance? Can he get even better? Last year, he was a stud. And like when Wheeler went down late last season to thoracic outlet syndrome, had the blood clotting issue, I think we all kind of looked around and said, can Sanchez do it? Like, it's one thing to have Wheeler as the ace of the staff, but can Cristopher Sanchez not only continue to pitch well, but can he essentially replace Wheeler? And he did. I mean, it was incredible. And you get to opening day, right? And I think the stat was that Sanchez is the first Dominican-born starter to ever start opening day at home for the Phillies, which is pretty cool. It's a neat thing for him. But Sanchez goes out, spins up 6 scoreless innings on opening day, 10 strikeouts, allows only 3 hits, 0 walks, and his changeup, which is a killer, 54% whiff rate against his changeup. That's bananagrams. Now, Todd Zalecki put out a quote that I want to get to from Jake Berger, the Rangers' first baseman. And this is like where you look at, like, if you're the opposition, right? Like, we watch it on TV and we're like, wow, Cristopher Sanchez is an incredible pitcher. He's got great stuff. But I always like to kind of mix in, because I'm an idiot, I like to mix in like what the opposition says. What does somebody who stands in the batter's box and has to stare down Cristopher Sanchez, what do those guys have to say about the player? Here's a quote. This is post-game from Rangers first baseman Jake Berger on Cristopher Sanchez. Quote, I think we saw why he was a runner-up in Cy Young last year. His changeup has the same shape and tightness to the ball as his sinker. He gets guys off balance really easy with that. Unfortunately, we couldn't get it done against him. Obviously, he's an ace. He's a bona fide superstar in the game. I mean, guys, that's a really impressive quote, right? That goes to show that the hype that we feel, because I often say, right, like there are times where as a collective fan base, Philadelphia can overrate their own players, right? And I think we'd all agree, like that is the thing that happens. But when you see somebody from the opposition say that he's a bona fide superstar in this game, that to me kind of speaks volumes. But he looked incredible. I mean, absolutely insane. And I don't remember if I brought this quote up, but we're going to take the opportunity here really quickly to just say what a dipshit Jim Bowden was. Because if you remember, and this happened it was a little bit less than a week ago when the Phillies restructured Cristopher Sanchez's contract and added 2 years of an extension, right? They gave him, I think it was $60 million guaranteed or whatever. Jim Bowden was the only person who poo-pooed the deal. This is about a week ago.
The way the Phillies reworked the contract of Cristopher Sanchez sets a horrible precedent for teams. Great for Sanchez, generous of the Phillies, but now a player that has far outperformed his agreed-upon contract might ask his club to do the same.
Oh, the horror, Jim Bowden! Oh, the horror! What a terrible thing for a team to go out of their way and say, you know what? You are significantly outperforming your contract. We want to reward you. Yeah. Hey, just out of curiosity, would it be fair to point out that Jim Bowden has had a few questionable decisions in his career? There were allegations back in his time, back around 2009, if I remember correctly. There were allegations about Jim Bowden being investigated by the FBI for skimming the signing bonus money from Latin American players. So is Jim Bowden just upset that he couldn't skim money off of Cristopher Sanchez's new contract? Is that what this is? Is that what this is? I would hope not, right? But yeah. So a guy who once was part of an FBI investigation for skimming money off of Latin American players' signing bonuses, that guy is upset about the precedent that the Phillies have set by paying Cristopher Sanchez what he's worth. I mean, call it like it is. That's what we try to do on the show. I think Jim Bowden's a dope. I think that's a pretty dumb thing to say. Would I say he's a total and complete dolt? Yes. Yes, I would. Yes, I would. Okay. So that's Jim Bowden. Idiot. Now, Sanchez, again, it was a great start by him. It was next level. I don't have a single thing to complain about. For you to have 10 strikeouts and no walks, the control that you have to have, and again, 54% whiff rate on the changeup, he just had guys off balance the entire time. I think that there was another stat that came up with the 10 strikeouts on opening day. I think he was like the 5th or 6th pitcher in history to throw an opening day start with no runs allowed, no walks, and 10 or more strikeouts. I think he was like the 6th pitcher in MLB history to do it. That's insane. Again, he's an awesome guy. Awesome pitcher. Seems to be really well liked in the locker room. Clearly is well thought of within the organization. Hence, you restructured a deal and added $60 million in guaranteed money. Absolute stud. So kudos to him. He got the job done. Now, one other guy that ended up getting himself into the game and did a good job at the end was Jhoan Duran, who wasn't supposed to be in this game, wasn't supposed to be factored into this game, and yet it ended up happening. Duran gets a very unique distinction at the end of this game. And I don't know if I'm totally shocked by it, but I did feel like it was at least somewhat surprising. Duran became the first Phillies reliever in history to save a game at home on opening day. It has never happened before, ever. Never in the history of the Philadelphia Phillies. That's nuts. That is legitimately bananagrams. Duran, think back to all of the great, even good closers that have been with this team. And even, again, if we want to play the past 2 decades game, right? I mean, you could go back to Billy Wagner was electric. You might have mixed feelings on Papelbon, but like quite a damn good closer. But the fact that no one else had Brad Lidge, right? Even Brad Lidge in the incredible season that he had, the year that they won the World Series. They've never had a guy record a save at home on opening day before. Here's to Duran. A La Colombe coffee hits different in the morning. It does. I found the stat, by the way, about Sanchez. So he is the only pitcher in the modern era to have struck out 10 batters, allowed 0 walks, 0 runs, and allowed 3 or fewer hits, and picked up a win on opening day. That's next level kind of stats. So Sanchez was great on the front end. Duran was great on the back end. But then we also have to talk about the lineup. We have to have a moment here, at the very least, to acknowledge a few things that we were kind of hoping we would see, right? So coming out of the World Baseball Classic, what were some of the things that I highlighted and looked at? Schwarber going into the final had the most hits of any batter in the entire tournament. Good stuff. His OPS was really strong. He looked like a guy that found his stroke early in the World Baseball Classic. So I said, all right, let's see if he can carry that through. He did. He had a 2-run home run to get the scoring started early, and then you hand that off to Cristopher Sanchez, and he can get the job done. So Schwarber looked really good. We don't know what Nola's going to look like yet. We still want to envision a scenario where Aaron Nola is going to take all of the positivity that came out of the World Baseball Classic and carry that over into the regular season. And for as much shit as I give Aaron Nola, he does seem like a genuinely good dude. I would really like to see Aaron Nola succeed this year. I know I'm critical. It's because I have higher expectations. I think that he should be a good pitcher. I just want to see him be a little bit more consistent. But because
he pitched on behalf of Italy, I'm going to give him a little extra, This year I'm going to give him a little bit more grace, That's what I'm going to do.
So we don't know. But the one guy that I was concerned with was Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper, who hit a massive home run in the final, and then ultimately the U.S. lost to Venezuela. But Harper had a shitty World Baseball Classic. He was hitting like 167 going into the final. He was like 10th or 14th or whatever in most counting stats. among first basemen in the World Baseball Classic. Like, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good tournament for him. And I had plenty of people who came back to me and said, hey, Russ, it's just one tournament. Hey, Russ, it's just a few games. It doesn't really matter. What are you getting so upset about? Why do you care so much? Take a chill pill, home slice. And my big thing here, spring training is one thing. World Baseball Classic is a little bit different. Spring training still feels like if you're an established player, if it doesn't go well, you go, it's just spring training. World Baseball Classic, higher stakes. Players are actively trying to win those games in a much more meaningful way because you're representing your country and you're playing among the best of your nation. Harper really underperformed in the World Baseball Classic. Now, again, that doesn't portend that the entire season is going to be dog doo-doo out of Bryce Harper. But coming off of last year, which was not an elite season, coming off of the distraction that he turned those Dave Dombrowski comments from the fall into coming into camp in the spring this year, I hoped that he was going to have a better tournament, and he didn't. And then you get to yesterday, and you're like kind of looking around going, all right, like no one actually knows what to expect of the Phillies lineup. You hope that Turner's going to be able to get on base so Schwarber can, get you 2 runs every time he swings that big old bat and knocks the ball out of the park, and that worked out fine. And you didn't know what to expect out of an Alec Bohm, but it's kind of frustrating to see Bohm hitting behind Harper again. That does kind of feel like a little bit of a failure there by the front office, but okay. You don't know what Adolis Garcia is going to be. Guy's got massive biceps. I think I heard on the radio, Fransky and Larry, they were talking about Garcia's biceps. And the comment was, he doesn't have biceps. He has 4 thighs. 2 of them come out of his hips, and then 2 of them come out of his shoulders. He's got massive arms. You saw Bryson Stott move up the lineup. Marsh is kind of down around where you'd expect. Real Muto was dropped in this lineup to 8th. And then Crawford ended up getting his first hit in his first at-bat as a Philly. But you come back to Harper. And in the midst of all these other questions and all these concerns and all right, what is Stott going to be? Can he keep up that hot spring that he's had? What's Brandon Marsh going to be? What will he look like at the plate? What's Garcia going to bring? Can he be an upgrade over Castellanos? The one guy that I certainly was focused on was Bryce Harper. What is Bryce Harper going to do when he manages to get into this lineup? Is he going to play well? And the answer was no. At least on opening day, it wasn't a good start for Bryce Harper. Now, again, one game is just one game. I am not here to sound all the alarms. I'm not here to put up 45 red flags. But, it wasn't a good starting salvo here for Bryce Harper. Now, again, it's one game. I'm not telling you that it means that this is all going to be death to his season or anything, but it wasn't particularly good. So I do have questions just in general around Bryce Harper. And for a guy who very clearly was pissed off by what the president of Baseball Ops said last fall, I hope that at some point he's able to kind of get that head back on. I don't think he needs to be MVP level Bryce Harper in order for this team to find success this year, but I do think that he certainly has to be better than he was on opening day. And again, it's just one game. But going 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, not ideal. Not ideal. But Kyle Schwarber delivered, so we're happy about that. Nick Abe over in the comments says, Harper has to stop swinging at everything. Well, maybe he's taking over the mantle for Nick Castellanos. Landro says, Harper has 161 games to make up for an off day. He'll be just fine. We will find out. We'll find out very soon. Ford says, Kruk interrupted McCarthy a bunch of times yesterday and kept saying sorry. He had the one line about Garcia, wanting to see Garcia and O'Neill oiled up. Big muscly dudes. And he had another, what was the other Kruk comment yesterday that there was one other one. I read it off and I cackled. It wasn't the oiled up one. Oh, it was, so McCarthy and John Kruk were talking about the, that's what it was. McCarthy and Kruk were talking about Wheeler doing a rehab start with Lehigh Valley. And I guess in honor of Zach Wheeler, they're doing all-you-can-eat rib night. And let me see. I think I have a way to share this, but without it being an issue here, because we don't want to get flagged here by the fine folks over at YouTube. Let me see. I think I think I could do this. All right, you guys should be able to hear the audio on this. Let's just sit back and enjoy Tom McCarthy and John Kruk.
See what the Iron Pigs are doing? They're doing an all-you-can-eat rib buffet in honor of Zach Wheeler pitching, because he had some of his rib taken out.
Oh, yeah.
From the
that's right.
thoracic outlet syndrome.
Huh. Well, I hope his ain't one of them.
I hope his ain't one of them. I know very few people who don't enjoy John Kruk. I enjoy Kruk a lot. I would assume that many of you also enjoy John Kruk on the telecast. There is a stark difference between what you hear on TV versus what you hear on the radio. And I know that there are a lot of people who poo-poo Tom McCarthy who would rather hear Fransky on TV. I got to tell you, it's one of those times that I think you should feel pretty fortunate that you have such different and yet enjoyable telecasts, like between the TV and radio. I actually love Fransky on the radio. I'm sure Fransky would be great on TV as well, but I really do love getting in the car and turning on the radio instead of turning on the radio, having that little bit of, static, that little bit of interference on the radio. I love listening to Fransky and Larry. I do. And at the same time, I really do enjoy. I think McCarthy, for as much flack as he's caught over the years, he stepped into a role filling in for an absolute legend in Harry Kalas. It is the ultimate unenviable position to be put in, and I think he's really grown into that role. I think Tom McCarthy is a very talented announcer. His football stuff is fantastic. I think he's gotten to a really good place as the Phillies TV guy. I think you all know me well enough that if I think somebody doesn't do a particularly good job or an enjoyable job, I call them out on it. I really do enjoy McCarthy and Kruk together. I think that Kruk has kind of unlocked something in McCarthy, and it's worked out really, really well on TV. I really do think that among all the things going on in this city, we're very fortunate with most of the broadcasters we have, play-by-play, color commentary. Not all of it's perfect. John Lithgow. No. Obviously, there's one that I think probably doesn't meet the moment quite as much as the others. But on the whole, I think in Philly, we've actually benefited pretty tremendously from having strong announcing crews. So what I could tell you is if you think that your announcers suck in a respective sport, I would highly encourage you to figure out a way, preferably legally, right, to check out a telecast from another team. And you're going to find that there are a lot of very underwhelming at best announce crews, whether it's in baseball, basketball, hockey, the local radio feed on football. We're actually pretty fortunate here in Philly. Julian Yeager checks in, says Kruk is a national treasure. He's been, I really do think he's been fantastic. Let's see. Julian also asks, correct me if I'm wrong, but swing the bat at everything won't get you 150 walks, right? That is correct. They were talking about that on the radio too, that there's this thought out there that Harper might walk 100 times or 150 times. It's like, at least he'd be on base. 0 for 4, though, not great. Let's see. Then you get a couple of people who are like, McCarthy's a Mets fan. I don't care. I think he does a really good job for the Phillies. I really do, truly. Z2 Bro says, any hockey broadcast that isn't Jim Jackson is horrible to listen to, besides Doc Emmerich. I miss Doc so much. Oh, Stars! I miss Doc Emmerich so much. I do. Fawcett here says, I listened to the Flyer Sharks game on XM with the Sharks radio announcers. Brutal. I'll tell you that too. So you got Jim Jackson, who's really good on TV, right? Solid. I think there's clearly, I think Jim Jackson has a bit of homerism to him, a little bit more homerism than I might want, but like Jim Jackson's a good announcer. Bush, very good with him. Over on the radio, like Tim Saunders does a really good job. Fedoruk is kind of like your fun color commentator. Like, I think that, again, we're fortunate. Go listen to some other fucking broadcasts from other towns. You're going to like want to claw your eyes out or your ears or maybe both. Okay. This is a hot take by B. Condor. Hot take, but Kenny Albert has become great at hockey broadcasting. I'm not a fan of Kenny Albert. I feel terrible saying it. Kenny Albert just doesn't do it for me. I don't know what it is. I wish I knew. I think that it goes back to when we would have Doc, but if Doc Emmerich weren't doing a game, Kenny Albert was like the B team. And I don't know if that's what it is. But Kenny Albert doesn't do it for me. Marv Albert, I loved Marv Albert on the NBA calls. Kenny, I don't think Kenny's a bad announcer. So like, this isn't me saying that he's a bad broadcaster, but he doesn't. I don't feel like he meets the moment. It doesn't feel like a big game to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Okay, so we've got that. Flyers Purgatory does not like Kate Scott. I'm not saying that's John Lithgow in this situation, but, you know. Do we know where Kate Scott was during the final scene of Poor Rita on Dexter? We don't know. Okay. If you missed the beginning of the show, that makes no sense and actually kind of sounds bad. So get your context. Okay. Let's move on to your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers, and then we'll wrap up with the Sixers because they actually did have something positive happen this week. So we'll get to the Sixers last. But we got to get to the Flyers because last night the Flyers handled business. While Cristopher Sanchez was handling business over at Citizens Bank Park, caddy corner, right? A little diagonally across the street. Over at the Xfinity Mobile Arena, the Flyers had to take on a Blackhawks team who had nothing to play for, a Blackhawks team that was largely, widely regarded as the only team without any real playoff hopes of any of the teams the Flyers are going to play over their last 17 or 18 games. This was the one cupcake on your schedule. And you got to give the Flyers credit across the board. Sam Ersson had a strong night in net. The only goal that the team allowed was a Connor Bedard goal. I think it was his 30th of the year. That dude's going to score. That dude's going to make things happen. But otherwise, it was pretty much full domination from the Flyers for 60 minutes. I mean, if you want to argue that there were a few lapses here and there, maybe you give Chicago the benefit of the doubt for 5 total minutes, 5.5 minutes of the 60. Fine, I guess. I don't know why you're trying to make that case, but if you want to, I guess maybe you could try. But on the whole, the Flyers dominated Chicago. A 5-1 win. And when you look at it too, you got pretty balanced scoring on the night, which I think, again, is going to be one of the things that you've got to get down the stretch. If this Flyers team is going to do what needs to be done to make a legitimate chase at the playoffs, they're going to need a bunch of guys contributing. So the game gets started off. Knight makes a really stupid decision behind his net. It ends up going in front of the net. Alex Bohm deposits the puck. Very short after that, similar kind of, kerfuffle at the front of the net. Sean Couturier gets his first of the night, his only one of the night, but Couturier scores. So 3.5 minutes into the game, you've got a 2-0 lead. And yeah, Vladar's not in net, Ersson is, but Ersson actually had an okay game. So you get goals last night from Bump, Couturier. You get one from Dvorak. Noah Cates continues a pretty impressive stretch here of putting the puck in the net and also contributing in a meaningful way. And how about Denver Barkey? Young Denver Barkey gets himself a goal as well. So a big positive night, and all of that happens. And then you look at the two guys that I think are the most important for this team, or two of the guys who are probably going to be the most important or should be the most important on this team. Travis Konechny, no points, no goals, no assists. Didn't have a horrific game, but I think it was largely unnoticeable last night. Matvei Michkov had an assist. I wouldn't say that it was a dominant performance out of Matvei Michkov last night. I think he had an okay game. If this Flyers team is going to go on the kind of run that it needs to collect enough points to hopefully make that playoff run, they're going to need more out of those guys. You got to give credit to guys like Tippett. Tippett had 2 assists on the night. Tippett has been arguably your best forward or one of your best forwards now for the better part of a month and a half. He had a couple of dangerous moments last night. Trevor Zegras had some confident moments with the puck last night and had an assist. But if this team is going to reach that next level, and if this team is going to have any chance of chasing down the Detroits of the world, the Islanders of the world, the Penguins, even the Bruins, however they're going to try to get into the playoffs, they need Travis Konechny to have an impact on games. They need Matvei Michkov to rediscover that goal-scoring touch. If those things don't happen, they've got no chance. Like, they've got no shot. And last night, it's great to get 5 goals from 5 different goal scorers. That's lovely. Konechny and Michkov have got to have more of an impact on these games night in and night out. But with all that in mind, we are going to take a look at the standings because they've shifted a little bit, right? Things are constantly changing. The Metropolitan Division continues to be quite the place. Let's take a goosey gander here real quick at where things are as of Friday, March 27th, the year of our Lord 2026, one of our final Fridays in Lent. We have no meat on a Friday if you're a good Catholic out there, but we have a meaty playoff picture to take a look at. So here's where things are at right now. I'm going to take the comments down so we can all see this. Flyers win last night. They've played 71 games. They have 11 games remaining. They're sitting on 82 points. Detroit, who they're going to play 3 more times. They have 3 games against Detroit, are only 2 points ahead of them. The Senators have 86 points. By virtue of the Penguins' win last night in a shootout, they are second in the Metropolitan Division with 88 points. And that loss also kicked Ottawa out of a playoff spot, at least temporarily. So if you're looking at this, here's where I want you to... I don't know what I did there. Let's go points, not wins. Okay. But take a look at this. I think that ultimately there's a good chance that one of the wild cards will come out of the Metropolitan Division. There's a chance. But I don't want that spot. Like, if you're the Flyers, you want to desperately avoid Buffalo or Tampa. You don't want to play those teams. Those teams will boat race you. You really don't want to play Carolina. They'll boat race you. But if you somehow end up in the 2nd or 3rd spot in the Metropolitan Division, you're going to play the other 2nd or 3rd place team in the Metropolitan Division. And all of a sudden, I'm not saying you win the first round series, but you certainly feel better about your chances against a Pittsburgh or a Columbus or an Islanders than you would against a Buffalo, a Tampa, a Carolina. I would certainly feel better. And again, I'm not saying that it's about trying to win a playoff series. I mean, hell, they've got to go on a hell of a winning streak here to even have a chance to make the playoffs. But the point still stands. Once you get into the playoffs, weird things can happen. We have seen teams get upset in the first round. Again, I certainly wouldn't put money on the Flyers to upset Buffalo or Tampa or Carolina, but could I envision a scenario where the Flyers go on a heater to close out the season, make the playoffs, play Pittsburgh or Columbus or the Islanders in the first round, and take it to 6 games, 7 games, maybe even win the series? Yeah, I think anything's possible. Anything other than beating Buffalo or Tampa or Carolina in the first round, I think it's like somewhat plausible. So I told you guys, like I'm very much now in the mentality, like, yeah, go out, win as many games as you can. They do not have a path to get a high draft pick. That path is gone, dead, donezo. We could look at it, but like it ain't happening. And if you're still holding on hope that this whole thing is going to implode, they're going to lose their last 11 games of regulation, I got news for you. That ain't happening. Right now, the Flyers at 82 points are 7 points ahead of Toronto in like the tanking standings. And remember, Toronto's pick will end up going to Boston. But like to get to that sweet spot, that number 8 spot in the draft lottery, where at worst you could only get jumped by 2 teams and finish with like the 10th overall pick. They are 7 points ahead of where Toronto is, with 2 games in hand on Toronto. Like, that ain't happening. You're not going in reverse that far. It just won't happen. No chance. So, go out and win as many games as you can. Try to make the playoffs. And as things currently sit, the Flyers are 5 points back. So, one thing that we can do, and we will continue to do, is just take a look at the remaining strength of schedule, because I think that ultimately is where you start to look at things and say, all right, is there a way to try to make a cogent argument that the Flyers have an actual chance to make the playoffs? Do they have anything kind of going in their favor? Well, here's where you're at right now. In terms of teams with the toughest strength of schedule remaining, Boston has the toughest strength of schedule, which could behoove you, because again, we can come back over here real quick. Boston has that first wild card spot. They're 6 points ahead of you. They play in the other division, but they're 6 points ahead of you for that number 1 wild card spot. But they have toughest strength of schedule. The Islanders The Islanders, who are also ahead of you, that you're going to have to jump over in order to get one of these spots. They have the second toughest strength of schedule. Columbus, who you lost to on Tuesday, terrible loss in regulation. Third toughest strength of schedule. Ottawa, who you're also chasing, fifth toughest strength of schedule remaining. The Flyers come in at sixth. I don't really care. It doesn't matter that much. Detroit, who you're also trying to catch, eighth toughest strength of the schedule, but keep in mind there, 3 of their games are against you. So Flyers and Red Wings, 3 games against one another. I mean, those are gigantic games. But you look at that and then you come back over here and there is a path. I don't tend to blow smoke. There's an actual path here to making the playoffs. It's not going to be easy, right? It won't be. I mean, again, take a look at the Flyers. Take a look at what they still have to run into. They've got to play Carolina. They have to play Dallas. Those are by far, I would argue, the 2 toughest opponents anybody in the Eastern Conference still has to play. But then you should also note, look at Boston. They also have to play Carolina. They also have to play Dallas. Oh, and by the way, they have 2 games against the Lightning and they have the Wild. So Boston's got a really tough road ahead. The Islanders have 2 games against Carolina and 1 against Buffalo, who all of a sudden has just looked like a juggernaut. Columbus has 2 games against the Hurricanes as well and 1 against Buffalo. None of this is easy. And look at Ottawa. 1 against Carolina, 1 against Buffalo, 2 against the Lightning, and against the Wild. There's a path here. I mean, if we play this one out, right? Look at the Islanders. Is it conceivable that the Islanders lose 2 games to Carolina? Yes. Is it possible they could lose to Buffalo? Yes. The rest of the schedule, I think, is pretty winnable for them. But that could be 3 losses in their last 9 games, right? So even if they go 6-3, 6-3 gets you 12 points. That would put Columbus at 99 points. It's a lot of points, right? 99 points. That's also assuming that they win those other 6 games, which maybe they don't. But that's 99 points to get the 3rd spot in the Met. And then we flip back over here, right? Flip over here. Boston. Could they lose to Carolina? Sure. Could they lose to Dallas? Sure. Could they lose at least 1 to Tampa? Yeah. Could they lose to Minnesota? Indeed, they could. That's 4. Columbus with everything to play for. Could they lose 1? They could. They could theoretically lose 5 of their last 10. If they lose 5 of their last 10, we flip back over here. That's 98 points. Maybe Boston is then the 2nd wild card team. You don't know. You don't know. All of this is just to say, guys, I think there's still a lot to be done here. Columbus. Could Columbus lose both games to Carolina? They could. Could they lose to Buffalo? They could. Could they lose 1 of 2 to Boston? They could. Could they lose to the Red Wings? They could. Well, that would mean that they lose 5 of their last 10 games. There's 10 points. We flip back over here. That would have them at 97 points. So now we've gotten a totals of 97 for Columbus, 98 for Boston, 99 for, who was it before? Maybe for the Islanders? I think it was for the Islanders. 97, 98, 99 points. That's tough. The Flyers have 22 potential points remaining. They would need to get, in this model, 15 points out of those 11 games just to be in that conversation around 97. That's a tough task. 15 points out of 22 remaining. That's hard. Is it possible? Yeah. I mean, in that scenario, you're looking at probably needing to win 7 of 11 games. No, sorry. Yes, 7 of 11 with 1 loser point gets you 15 points. That gets you to 97. I think for them to actually make the playoffs, you probably need 98 points. Can you get 16 points out of 11 games? Can you get 16 out of 22? Well, if you think of it like this, the Flyers have been masters of getting to the extra session. So if you need 16 points, 3 overtime losses gets you 3, and then you need 13 more points. Let's say instead you get 4 loser points and 6 wins. Can you get 6 wins, 4 loser points, 1 regulation loss? That seems like a tall task. Can you do 6-1-4 over your last 11 games? Can we map this out to get to 6-1-4? Maybe. I mean, I think that you probably lose to Dallas, but can you take them to the extra session? I think good chance you lose to Carolina. Can you take them to the extra session? You've got to win at least 2 of 3 against Detroit. You've got to at least lose in overtime if you're going to lose. I mean, this is tough. I'm not telling you they're going to do it, but like 6-1-4 is what it feels like you're going to have to do in order to make the playoffs. And as I've been saying, if you go on that kind of run to end the season, which by the way, like it's still 1 game over 500, 6-5. It's 6 wins, 5 losses. If you could do that down the stretch, well, I have no idea what happens in the playoffs. But man, you've got to get Michkov and Konechny contributing in a meaningful way. All right, so I'm going to go out to the comments because I saw people doing some math out here. All right, let me see. Nick Abe says the Penn schedule is getting really easy, which is a shame too because they had that really, really rough start to March. Really tough stretch to start March. Olson Matt says, I feel bad for Chicago. They're rebuilding so they can eventually win cups. I'm glad the Flyers don't take that trajectory. Better to be perpetually mediocre than actually try to win cups. Olson Matt, you had me in the first half. I'm not going to lie. Nick Abe says, if they miss the playoffs this season, it's a failure. Here's the problem, right? Like, beginning of the season, I thought there was a chance they could make the playoffs. Vladar played out of his mind. That one injury, that stretch that he missed, really did kind of doom them. They had a stretch in January when I was in Europe that, like, they just totally fell apart. If they don't make the playoffs, I don't know if it's a failure, but I think that that's where you look at it and go, if you're picking 15th, then on aggregate, it kind of feels like not a great result. Landra says, I don't think they'll get in, but at least we get to see some meaningful games. I thought Emil Andre played a good game after some ho-hum efforts and a healthy scratch. I agree. Let's go over here. ZT Bro says, Russ, what winger are we trading? I wouldn't say it's a failure. There's been growth, but it will be disappointing. I don't know. I'm not willing to admit I was wrong about Tippett because it's not an extended enough period of time. But like if he continues to play, like if this is the new version of Owen Tippett and this is going to be the guy that you have, trading him is going to be difficult to do. I don't know who they're going to get rid of. I think this whole thing gets really interesting if Michigan State gets bounced next round and Martone comes up and plays like 5 games or 6 games or whatever. Then I think things get really, really interesting. But then again, like what exactly is the expectation? Philly fan shows Pittsburgh and Boston, and I don't know what this is mapped out for, but this just shows like I guess some potential mapping of how teams could kind of play this thing out. If Pittsburgh goes 6-2-2, they'll finish with 102 points. They'd be second in the Met, I think that says. Boston, if they go 5-4-1, they'd have 99 points in the first wild card spot. If Ottawa goes 4-4-2, they'd have 96 points and end up with the second wild card. The Flyers, if they go 5-2-4, would have 96 points and finish third in the Met. Columbus going 3-4-3 would get them 95 points. They'd be out. The Islanders going 3-4-1 would get them 95. They'd be out. Detroit going 4-4-3 would get them 95, and they'd be out. 5-2-4 seems kind of feasible. I'm not positive that 96 points is enough. I'm really not. But I do appreciate Philly fan kind of mapping that out. That makes it seem a little bit more attainable. Let's see. Flyers Purgatory says they can only have one more regulation loss the rest of the way to have any shot. I think that's mostly true. And that's tough, especially when you've got Carolina and Dallas coming up. Landra says, honestly, until they get a legit 1C and legit 2C, then will the young stud wingers develop worse? How will we actually know what we have? Cates with Michkov, that's the best option. LOL. Yeah, I mean, offer sheet time, baby. I wish. I don't know if it'll happen. It would be nice, though. Olson says, to be fair, if the team picked first overall, they would use their brain power to draft someone no one else is thinking of because our scouts are smarter than everyone else. All right, let's see. I see some more stuff over in the comments. I got to kind of jump around here a little bit. It's Hunzi says, Tippett's been the best Flyer for over a month. What are we saying? It's not long enough. It's not. A month and a half stretch is not long enough to know for sure that you can... like Tippett has had months or like weeks at a time over the last couple of seasons where he looks like he's turned a corner and then he regresses and like pretty much goes invisible for stretches and like makes boneheaded decisions. And you're just like, I don't get it. Chris Pronger was over on Nasty Knuckles like last week, or maybe it was earlier this week. And he's like, this guy has the physical tools to be a really good player, which is what makes it so maddening that he can't put it together consistently. All right, let's see. I see a bunch of people arguing about the playoffs. Okay. All right. I want to go over to one last thing before we wrap up, and that's about the Sixers. Now, you guys know how I am about the Sixers. I try to be objective, but I do openly admit it's hard for me to be objective about your team, your town, and Philadelphia 76ers. I just want to point out really quickly that Paul George and Joel Embiid came back into the lineup together. Paul George's suspension is over. Joel Embiid is back, although Embiid said that his oblique is not nearly as good or in good of shape as it needs to be, which is somewhat troubling. He said, though, on a positive note, that his knees are fine. He hasn't had any issues with his knees in a good long while. It's just this oblique thing. But like the other night, you're watching things play out. Tyrese Maxey's still out. VJ Edgecombe dropped 22 points, an incredibly efficient night. 7 of 9 from the field, 4 of 5 from beyond the arc. Quentin Grimes, 13 points, not the greatest night, but 5 of 10 from the field. 1 of 3 from downtown. You go, okay, you can make that work as a backcourt. 35 points combined between those two. Who had 35 points by himself? Joel Embiid, 12 of 17 from the field, went a perfect 3 for 3 from beyond the arc, 8 of 9 from the free throw line, had 7 assists, 6 rebounds, 3 blocks. Joel Embiid, it is remarkable how he can miss so much time, come back in, and it's like he didn't miss a step. But the guy that I want to focus on is Paul George, because we all knew what we wanted to see. What we wanted to see from Paul George in returning to the lineup is a guy who looks hungry and motivated and a guy who looks like he's got a lot of time to make up. And Paul George was decisive against the Bulls. Now, I mean, the Bulls suck. But, like, he was decisive. He was scoring at all levels. And if this team is going to have any chance of kind of making, not a run here at the end of the season, but like going into the playoffs in a strong spot, in a strong position, they need Paul George to play like he did the other night. Because he also, by the way, was impactful defensively. He made some really smart defensive plays. He had 4 steals and a block. That's to go along with 28.6 rebounds and 4 assists. I mean, he was all over the place on both sides of the court. But like, again, I'm not here to tell you that we're going to see, you know, the clock get turned back and we're going to see like Indiana Pacer Paul George, a young Paul George. I'm not saying that we're going to see Thunder Paul George or like the first year of Paul George with the Clippers. I'm not saying that. But man, if this dude can go out and on a night that Tyrese Maxey's out of the lineup, Paul George gets the most shot attempts from the field of any player on the team. He had 5 more shots than Joel Embiid. 6 of 13 from beyond the arc. But again, it wasn't like he was just a 3-point attempt merchant. He was scoring in the mid-range, had a few moments near the rim, and ultimately, I think for Paul George to have the kind of success that he needs to have and this team needs him to have, he's got to be a guy who can be a catch-and-shoot 3-point guy. So whether it's being a catch-and-shoot guy, creating his own shot, which he does, creating his own space at the top of the arc, which he did, great. So Paul George and Joel Embiid combined for 63 points in their return to the lineup. Obviously, the big thing with Embiid is going to be, how do you manage this oblique injury? How do you make sure you don't end up out of the lineup again? It's amazing what a difference it makes to have 2 of the 3 stars back in the lineup. Incredible what a difference that makes. I am 100% willing to be hurt by the Sixers again. I am totally open to it. It will happen. They will let me down at some point. But it did feel nice for at least one night to kind of see this thing working the way that it should. And while it would have been great to have Tyrese Maxey in, I will also note, they didn't exactly need him. 157 points. No overtime. 157 points. That is bananagrams. Absolutely nuts. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And I love seeing that VJ Edgecombe has kind of kept up the scoring ways. And that with Maxey out of the lineup, it does feel like Edgecombe is figuring out a way to get himself more involved in the offense. Over his last 4 games, Edgecombe is averaging 29.3 points per game. He's averaging 8 rebounds, 6.3 assists per game, almost 55% from the field, and nearly 49% from beyond the arc. So, Edgecombe feels like he's hitting his stride. You get back Paul George from suspension. You get back Joel Embiid, who's saying he's not even physically 100%, but it's this oblique and it's not the knees, thankfully. I mean, we can all kind of live in a world where we're just expecting everything to fall apart. I would like to live in a world where we maybe look at the Sixers and say, hey, the playoffs could be fun. Because as we've covered on this show, they are not going to get their pick in the draft this year. So you gotta go for it. I'm actually going to take a look real quick because I didn't do this today, but just taking a gander really quickly at what the playoff matchups would be right now in the Eastern Conference. The Sixers would be the 7th seed. Does that sound right? I think so. Yeah, they're the 7th seed. Interesting. Very, very interesting. You want to avoid the play-in. I think more than anything else, you just want to avoid the play-in. So, they got to get a few more wins here. Can they jump over Atlanta? Atlanta's only a game ahead of them. They can. Could they potentially get ahead of Toronto? Toronto's, half a game up? They have 1 fewer loss than the Sixers. Can they get to where Cleveland is at? They're 5 games or so behind Cleveland. I don't know if they can make up that much ground. Highly unlikely. They've only got, 5 games left to play? 77 they've played? Yeah. There's a possibility that they could get into that 5th spot. And if you're in the 5th seed and you play James Harden and the Cleveland Cavaliers, I got to tell you, you might actually feel pretty good about that matchup. You honestly might not feel like total death. Map this one out with me real quick. If you're in the 4-5 matchup and you take on Cleveland and you're healthy, I think the Sixers beat Cleveland. Detroit, if they're able to hold off Boston, which it seems like they will, if Detroit wins their series, well then Sixers would play Detroit in the 2nd round. And I don't fear Detroit. Can the Sixers beat the Pistons in the 2nd round? No. But yes. But no. For this thought experiment, let's just say yes. And then Boston probably plays the Knicks in the 2nd round. And Boston wins. So then it's Sixers-Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. I can't even fake that this is real. Celtics play the Sixers in the Eastern Conference Final. And you know what? This is the year for the Sixers. This is the year that they take it to 6 games. Boston goes on. We're probably going to get, I would imagine we're going to get Boston versus OKC. If I had to put money on it right now, it's Boston, OKC. Outside chance, San Antonio could beat Oklahoma City in the Western Conference Final. That'd be fun. Wemby versus the Celtics in the final could be interesting. But yeah, I just don't, I don't think Detroit is that good. I really don't. I'm not going to compare it totally to, was it last year is when Cleveland had the ridiculous record and I said they were frauds? I think so. So that's it. I think that's where we're at right now. I would not fear Detroit at all. I think we'll leave it there. I think that's probably it. I don't know when Cade Cunningham's coming back either. He has a collapsed lung. So reinflate the lung? How long do you have to be out with a deflated lung? How long does that keep a guy out for? Is he out for like a couple weeks? Is he out for a month? Is he out for the rest of the season? Who knows? Who's to tell? I will say that the funny thing that is happening right now is you're seeing a lot of revisionist history. Remember all those years that Joel Embiid was kind of in the MVP conversation, and then people got their panties in a bunch because, oh, well, Joel Embiid hasn't played enough games. He shouldn't qualify for an MVP award. And there's that 65-game threshold. That was a big thing. Well, if you can't play 65 games, how could you be considered for the MVP or Defensive Player of the Year or whatever? There's been a lot of hand-wringing and bitching and moaning about a bunch of different players who are not or are in jeopardy of not hitting that 65-game threshold. And where it really matters is for like the All-NBA teams. And Cade Cunningham theoretically could have been on the All-NBA first team. But if he misses enough games, he won't qualify. So now his agent is kind of like running a campaign in the media. I think Wemby, there have been some issues there, right? Was it Kawhi as well? Like there are a bunch of guys right now who could theoretically be on some All-NBA teams or be up for individual awards. And if they miss that 65-game threshold, then guess what? They ain't getting it. Anyway, I think that's it. So we talked Phillies. Cristopher Sanchez, stud. Duran came in, stud. Schwarber, Bohm, excellent stuff. One thing that you'll notice that we didn't touch on here, and it was about the Phillies, is the Alec Bohm lawsuit. And there's a simple reason that I'm not diving into it, okay? I didn't want to like dampen the start of the show with this. I think it's really sad. I think that the entire situation, without really knowing what's going on, right? I think the whole thing is just really sad. We'll just like touch on this really quickly. The Philadelphia Inquirer reported that Alec Bohm is suing his parents for mismanaging his finances. Bohm is suing his own parents for $3 million. I just think the whole thing is sad. Is it true? Is it not true? I don't know. But I just hate the idea that I hate it from both sides. I hate it from the perspective of the player, because if it is true that his parents skimmed money off the top or whatever, $3 million worth of his money was mismanaged, that feels like an ultimate betrayal from your parents. From the parents' side of things, if it's not true, you're being dragged through the mud here, and now you probably have like an irrevocably damaged relationship with your kid. So I feel bad there. I know that there are some people kind of clowning on it yesterday, but I think it's just a sad situation. And regardless of how it plays out, regardless of what comes out of it, I just think it's sad. I really do. I think it's a sad situation. And if it is true that Alec Bohm's parents mismanaged his money, whether it was with malicious intent or not, that just sucks. Can I also just ask a very respectful question? Because I don't know what Alec Bohm's parents do, okay? I have not researched this, right? I don't know what Alec Bohm's parents do. But if you're a multimillionaire athlete, right? If you are a player who has made it to the highest level and is making millions of dollars, get a real financial advisor. Spend the money and put that money into a legitimate financial advisor. Your parents can love you, but they shouldn't manage your money. Your brother or your uncle or your cousin or your best friend's dad might think that they're pretty good with money. Hire an actual person who can be a professional to do it. I just think the whole thing's sad, though. I really do. So, I wish Alec Bohm the best. I think that that's a really shitty position to be in. I hope it, on one hand, I hope it's not true. And on the other, if it is true, I hope he gets everything that he's looking for in this settlement, because that just sucks. All right. That's it for today. I want to thank everybody for joining me here on a fantastic Friday. Do me a favor if you haven't done so already. Like the video, share the video, subscribe, ring the bell to get notified whenever we go live with an episode. Of course, you can also find the show not only on YouTube and Facebook and X, but you can also find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find short form content, clips of this show. Nice little ones that you hold your phone like this in portrait mode instead of landscape. And you can watch my five-head yell at you about Philly sports and more. And those videos are on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. If you see them, maybe hit them with a like. If you really want to help, hit it with a share. follow those accounts. All those things are very nice positive signals. It helps the show grow. We're getting close. We're actually, I think the last time I looked, we're getting close to 2,300 subscribers now on the YouTube. So that's fun. I appreciate each and every one of you for being part of it. Ooh, we had a jump today. We're up to 2,275. 25 people away. So send this show off to friends, family, ex-significant others, co-workers. And don't forget, if you know somebody who builds decks, send them my way. I want a deck out back. And I don't want to get decked by Ford or anyone. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I hope you have a fantastic Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll talk to all of you on Monday here on the Russ Joy Show. Until then, this has been the Russ Joy Show. No, I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. That's also the name of the show. Talk to all of you Monday here on the Russ Joy Show. Enjoy Phillies baseball this weekend. Enjoy the Fly Guys. Enjoy the Sixers. The Union, I don't know. Bye now.